Mom, pack your things. We're leaving the beach house tomorrow morning. I sold it yesterday. The buyers want possession by Monday.
The words came fast, clinical, like she was reading from a script. No warmth, no apology, just facts delivered with the emotional weight of a grocery list. You sold, I started, but the line went dead. I stood there holding the phone, watching the call duration blink. 42 seconds. 42 seconds to dismantle a lifetime. The beach house wasn't just property. It was where her father proposed to me under a September moon, where she took her first steps on weathered floorboards, where we scattered his ashes from the deck 2 years ago. 45 years raising her, sacrificing for her, and she discarded me like garbage. But I took a deep breath and smiled because there was something my dear daughter didn't know. My name is Geneva Mitchell. Hello, my dear friends, and welcome back to Aunt Uju Voice. If you're new here, welcome to our family. This is where we share real stories about real people, stories that teach us, inspire us, and remind us that we're never alone in our struggles. To my loyal subscribers, thank you. Thank you for being here, for sharing these stories, and for allowing me into your lives week after week. Your comments, your support, your stories, they fuel this channel and remind me why I do what I do. Before we begin today's story, I want to say a prayer for each and every one of you watching this. Wherever you are in the world, whatever you're going through right now, I pray that peace finds you. I pray that blessings overflow in your life. I pray that protection surrounds you and your loved ones. May your heart be light, your mind be clear, and your path be guided by grace and wisdom. Amen. Now, let's dive into today's story. It's about betrayal, yes, but it's also about strength, dignity, and the kind of justice that doesn't come from anger, but from love. If this story touches your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And drop a comment below telling me what you think. I read every single one. Let's begin. I'm 63 years old, and until that phone call, I thought I knew my daughter. Her name is Brianna, my only child, the little girl I raised with every ounce of love I had in me. The same girl who used to run into my arms after school, who cried on my shoulder after her first heartbreak, who held my hand at her father's funeral. But the voice on the other end of that phone? Cold, detached, like I was a tenant being evicted. Not her mother. I had become a widow 2 years ago. My husband, Paul, passed away from a heart attack on a Tuesday morning. We were sitting at the kitchen table, eating breakfast like we'd done every morning for 38 years. He had just poured me a second cup of coffee, kissed my forehead, and said, "You know I love you, right?" Those were his last words. He collapsed before I could answer. By the time the ambulance arrived, he was gone. Since Paul's death, Brianna had been more present in my life. Or so I thought. She called me every few days, visited on weekends, helped me sort through Paul's belongings. She even insisted I see a doctor for a general checkup. "Mum, you need to take better care of yourself now that you're alone," she'd say, with that smile I thought was love. But now I understood it was something else entirely. Convenience. The beach house had been our sanctuary. Paul and I bought it when Brianna was 10, with savings we'd scraped together over years of hard work and sacrifice. Every summer, we'd pack up the car and drive 3 hours north to Harlow Bay. We'd spend weeks there, building sandcastles, grilling fish on the deck, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Brianna brought her boyfriends there. Later, she brought Kyle, the man she'd eventually marry. I cooked for them, cleaned for them, made sure they had everything they needed. It was our family tradition. I never thought she'd see it as just money. And Paul's truck, that old pickup he cared for, like it was his child. He'd wash it every Sunday, change the oil himself, park it under the oak tree in the driveway. Brianna knew what that truck meant to me. It still smelled like him. I could still see him behind the wheel, one hand on the steering wheel, the other reaching over to hold mine. When she hung up, I stayed there in my kitchen, surrounded by the silence of a house that had once been filled with laughter. And for the first time in months, I didn't cry. Something strange happened inside me. A calm I hadn't felt since Paul's death. Because in that moment, I remembered something I had completely forgotten. 3 days before he died, Paul had handed me a lockbox. "Geneva," he'd said, his voice weak, but his eyes burning with intensity. "Put this somewhere safe. Don't open it until you absolutely need to. Promise me." I promised. After the funeral, with so much grief and so many arrangements, I simply forgot. But it was there, waiting for me. Hidden in the back of our bedroom closet, behind the winter coats and old photo albums. I walked slowly to the bedroom, opened the closet, and pulled out the lockbox. My hands trembled as I turned the key. Inside were documents, deeds, certificates, account statements, and a letter in Paul's careful handwriting. I sat on the edge of our bed and began to read. "My dearest Geneva, if you're reading this, it means our daughter has finally revealed who she's become. I've known for years, longer than you, because you loved her too much to see it. The way she looked at us changed, Geneva. Somewhere along the way, we became assets to her instead of parents. I've prepared for this. Everything in this box is yours, and only yours. The beach house, yes, but also the commercial property on Harbour Street that I bought 15 years ago. The investment accounts I never mentioned. The 3 rental properties in Portland. Together, they're worth just over $2 million. I kept it secret because I wanted Brianna to love us for who we were, not what we had. I see now that was naive. But Geneva, this is important. The beach house deed has a clause. Any sale requires both signatures, yours and mine. I had my lawyer set it up that way 10 years ago. After I'm gone, only you can authorize a sale. Which means whatever Brianna thinks she's sold, she hasn't. The sale is void, illegal. What you do with this information is up to you, my love. But know this. You've never been as fragile as Brianna thinks. You're the strongest woman I've ever known. Show her that strength now. Yours always, Paul. I read the letter 3 times. Then I looked through the documents, one by one. Property deeds, bank accounts I'd never heard of, investment portfolios with numbers that didn't seem real. Paul had been a bus driver for 40 years, but apparently he had also been a very smart investor. Every penny we saved, every sacrifice we made, he had multiplied in silence, and I never knew anything. My hands shook as I picked up the phone and dialed the number on the business card clipped to the documents. Mitchell Brennan, attorney at law. He answered on the second ring. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said, and there was warmth in his voice. "I've been expecting your call." Mitchell Brennan's office occupied the 3rd floor of a renovated brick building downtown. The receptionist led me to a spacious corner office with windows overlooking the harbour. He was younger than I expected, maybe 50, with silver threading through dark hair and eyes the colour of storm clouds. When he stood to greet me, I noticed he moved with careful grace, like someone who'd learned to be gentle with the world. "Mrs. Mitchell, please, sit." "Geneva," I corrected. "Geneva." He smiled, and it reached his eyes. "Paul spoke of you often. Every time we met, he'd start and end the conversation talking about you. The mention of Paul's name in this stranger's mouth should have felt intrusive. Instead, it felt like coming home. He never mentioned you, I admitted. He wouldn't have. That was the point. Mitchell opened a file on his desk. Paul came to me about 12 years ago. He'd watched your daughter marry Kyle Dennison and saw the changes in her after. He wanted to protect you, Geneva, from everything, even from grief, if he could manage it. The documents he left me are all legitimate, and the beach house sale your daughter orchestrated is absolutely void. She forged your signature. I have proof. My breath caught. She committed fraud. Yes. Mitchell's expression was gentle but firm. The question is, what you want to do about it? I looked out at the harbour, at the boats rocking in their slips, and thought about Brianna, my daughter. The child I'd rocked through midnight fevers, taught to ride a bike, held when her first boyfriend broke her heart. When had I lost her? Or had I ever really had her at all? I want to teach her something, I said finally. Something she should have learned a long time ago. Mitchell leaned back in his chair, studying me. Tell me what you need. The plan took 2 weeks to set in motion. During that time, I played my part perfectly. The confused, grieving widow who'd been taken advantage of. I called Brianna and asked, in my most trembling voice, if I could stay with her while I figured things out. Of course, Mom, she'd said, with false brightness that made my teeth ache. You can stay in the guest room. The guest room. In the condo I technically owned, though she didn't know it yet. I moved in on a rainy Tuesday. Brianna and Kyle were polite but distant, treating me like an inconvenient houseguest. They went out most evenings, dinners, networking events, gallery openings, living the life my beach house had funded. During the days while they were at work, I met with Mitchell. Our meetings started professional, reviewing documents, discussing legal strategy. But something shifted in the third meeting. I mentioned how Paul used to make terrible jokes while cooking dinner. And Mitchell laughed, really laughed, and said, he did that in meetings too. Terrible puns about contracts and clauses. It drove me crazy, but I miss it. You were friends, I said. Not a question. He was my first real client when I started my practice. Took a chance on a kid fresh out of law school. We had coffee every month for 12 years. He talked about you constantly. Geneva this, Geneva that. Mitchell smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. I felt like I knew you before we ever met. He never mentioned having a lawyer friend. That was intentional, part of the plan. He didn't want you to question why he was seeing a lawyer regularly. Mitchell paused, his eyes searching mine. He loved you so much, Geneva. Every decision he made was about protecting you. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with meaning. And in that moment, something passed between us. Not attraction exactly, but recognition. Two people who'd both loved Paul Mitchell in different ways, who both understood loss. How long has your wife been gone? I asked softly. He blinked, surprised. What makes you think? The way you talk about missing someone. I recognize it. Mitchell was quiet for a long moment. 7 years. Cancer? She was 41? I'm sorry. Me too. He met my eyes. About Paul. He was a good man. The best. We sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes when two people understand each other's pain. Mitchell, I said finally, I need your help with something else. I want to let Brianna dig herself deeper. I want her to show me exactly who she's become. And then, Then you want to teach her a lesson she'll never forget. Exactly. Mitchell leaned forward, his expression serious but supportive. Then let's make sure this lesson sticks. Brianna's world began unraveling on a Thursday morning, 3 weeks after I'd moved in. I was in the kitchen making tea when Kyle came home ashen-faced, clutching a stack of legal documents. He stormed past me without acknowledgement. "Brianna!" he shouted. "Brianna!" She emerged from their bedroom in a silk robe, irritation etched across her face. "What's wrong with you?" "The beach house sale. It's been declared fraudulent. The buyers are suing us. They want their money back plus damages." He thrust the papers at her. "Did you forge your mother's signature?" The blood drained from Brianna's face. "I... We needed the money. I thought..." "You thought what? That you could commit fraud and face no consequences?" Kyle's voice climbed higher. "Do you know what this means? This could destroy my business before it even starts. We could go to jail." I set down my tea and walked into the living room. Both of them turned to me, Brianna's eyes wide with panic, Kyle's burning with rage. "Mom," Brianna started, "I can explain—" "Can you?" My voice was calm, steady. "Can you explain why you forged my signature? Why you sold my house, mine and your father's, without permission? Can you explain why you thought 40% of my own property was generous?" "We needed—" "I know what you needed." I picked up my purse from the side table. "What I need is for you both to understand something. Actions have consequences, and yours are just beginning." Kyle barked a laugh. "What are you going to do?" "You don't have any power here." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw exactly what Paul had seen years ago. A man who measured worth in dollars and saw people as stepping stones. "We'll see about that," I said quietly, and walked out. That evening, I sat across from Mitchell in a quiet corner booth at a small Italian restaurant. He'd insisted on taking me to dinner after the confrontation, saying I needed to decompress and strategize for what came next. The candlelight flickered between us, casting warm shadows across his face. He looked concerned, protective even. "How are you feeling?" he asked, pouring me a glass of red wine. "Honestly?" I took a sip, letting the warmth spread through me. "I feel alive. For the first time since Paul died, I feel like myself again." Mitchell smiled. "Paul would be proud of you. The way you handled that, calm, dignified, powerful, that's exactly what he hoped you'd find in yourself." "I'm not done yet. I know." He leaned forward, his eyes locked on mine. "But Geneva, we need to be strategic about the next steps. Brianna and Kyle are going to panic. They'll try to talk to you, manipulate you, maybe even threaten you. You need to be prepared." "What do you suggest?" "Let them sweat for a few days. Let the reality of their situation sink in. Then we hit them with the full truth, the properties, the accounts, everything Paul left you. When they realize how much they've underestimated you, when they understand that they've been living in your condo, eating your food, spending your money, that's when the real lesson begins." I studied him across the table. There was something different about the way he looked at me tonight. Something that went beyond lawyer and client, beyond friends united by a shared loss. "Why are you doing this?" I asked softly. "You could have just handled this professionally, sent me documents, made phone calls. Why get personally involved?" Mitchell was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing the rim of his wineglass. "Because Paul asked me to," he said finally. 3 weeks before he died, he came to my office. He was weak, could barely walk, but he insisted on meeting in person. He sat right where you're sitting now and said, Mitchell, when I'm gone, Geneva's going to need someone. Not just a lawyer, a friend. Someone who understands what it's like to lose everything and find a reason to keep going. I think you're that person. My breath caught. He said that? Word for word. Mitchell's voice was thick with emotion. And then he said something else. He said, Don't let her disappear into grief. Don't let her forget who she is. And if the time comes when she's ready, if she ever wants to open her heart again, don't be afraid to be there. The air between us shifted, charged with something I hadn't felt in years, something I thought had died with Paul. Mitchell. I'm not trying to replace him, he said quickly. I could never replace Paul, but I am trying to honor his wishes. And maybe. He paused, vulnerability written across his face. Maybe I'm trying to honor what he saw in both of us. Two people who loved deeply, lost everything, and deserve a second chance at happiness. I reached across the table and took his hand. His fingers were warm, strong, steady. Thank you, I whispered, for everything. He squeezed my hand gently. We're just getting started. The next morning, I woke early in the small apartment I'd rented temporarily, a quiet space away from Brianna's condo where I could think clearly. Mitchell had helped me move my essentials out while Brianna and Kyle were at work, leaving only a note on the kitchen counter that read, Staying with a friend. We'll talk soon. My phone had been buzzing non-stop since yesterday. 17 missed calls from Brianna, 9 from Kyle. A string of text messages that ranged from apologetic to angry to desperate. Brianna. Mum, please call me. We need to talk. Brianna. I'm sorry. I know I messed up. Please just talk to me. Kyle. This is ridiculous. You're acting like a child. Brianna. Mom, Kyle didn't mean that. We're both just stressed. Please come home. Brianna. The lawyers are saying we could face criminal charges. Please, help us. I deleted every message without responding. Instead, I drove 3 hours north to Harlow Bay, to the beach house that Brianna thought she'd sold. The house stood exactly as Paul and I had left it, waiting. The key was still hidden under the third porch step, where we'd kept it for 20 years. I let myself in and stood in the living room, breathing in the scent of salt air and old wood. Everything was the same. Our wedding photo on the mantel, Paul's favourite coffee mug in the dish rack, the worn couch where we'd spent countless evenings reading together, my head on his shoulder, his hand in my hair. I walked through each room slowly, letting the memories wash over me. The bedroom where we'd made love on summer mornings, windows open to the sound of crashing waves. The kitchen where Paul had taught Brianna to make pancakes, flour everywhere, laughter filling the air. The deck where we'd scattered his ashes, watching them dance on the wind before disappearing into the ocean. This house was sacred ground, and Brianna had tried to sell it like it was nothing more than a transaction. I sat on the deck, watching the waves roll in, and called Mitchell. I'm at the beach house, I said when he answered. How are you holding up? Better than expected. Being here, it hurts, but it also reminds me why I'm doing this. Paul built this place with his own hands. Every board, every nail, every window. He poured his heart into it because he wanted to give us something beautiful, something that would last. He succeeded. Yes, he did. I paused, watching a seagull land on the railing. Mitchell, I want to bring Brianna here. I want her to see what she tried to destroy. I want her to understand what this place means before I tell her the truth. Are you sure you're ready for that conversation? No, I admitted. But it's time. I texted Brianna that evening. Meet me at the beach house tomorrow at noon. Come alone. She responded within seconds. Mum, thank God. I'll be there. I'm so sorry. I love you. I didn't reply. The next morning, I woke early and prepared the house. I cleaned every surface, opened all the windows, let the ocean breeze flow through. I set out photo albums on the coffee table, albums full of our family history, of Brianna's childhood, of the life we'd built together. Then I made coffee and waited. Brianna arrived at 11:45, driving Paul's old pickup truck. The sight of it made my chest tighten. She climbed out looking haggard, her usually perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, her face bare of makeup. She walked up the porch steps, slowly, hesitantly, like a child approaching a parent after misbehaving. "Mom," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." I opened the door but didn't speak, just gestured for her to come inside. We sat across from each other in the living room, the same room where she'd taken her first steps, where Paul had read her bedtime stories, where we'd celebrated every Christmas and birthday and milestone. "Do you remember this house?" I asked quietly. Brianna looked around, tears streaming down her face. "Of course I do." "Tell me what you remember." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I remember Dad teaching me to swim. I was so scared of the water, and he held me, told me he'd never let me go, and he didn't. He stayed with me for hours until I finally relaxed enough to float. What else? I remember the summer I turned 16. I had my heart broken by that boy. What was his name? Justin. I cried for 3 days straight, and you and Dad took me here. You made my favorite meals. Dad told terrible jokes, and you both you let me be sad. You didn't try to fix it. You just loved me through it." "And what else do you remember?" Brianna's face crumpled. "I remember Dad's last summer here. He was so tired, but he insisted on coming. He sat on that deck for hours, just staring at the ocean. And one night, I found him crying. He told me he was afraid, afraid of leaving you alone, afraid of what would happen to this place, afraid that I'd forget what really mattered." She sobbed openly now, her whole body shaking. "I forgot, Mum. I forgot everything he taught me. I forgot what you both sacrificed to give me a good life. I forgot that love isn't measured in money or possessions or status. I forgot." She couldn't finish. I let her cry, let her feel the full weight of what she'd done. When she finally calmed down, I handed her a tissue and spoke. "Brianna, do you know why your father loved this house?" "Because it was beautiful. Because it was peaceful." "No." I shook my head. "He loved this house because it represented everything he believed in. Hard work, sacrifice, building something with your own hands that would outlast you. He bought this place when we had nothing, took out a loan we could barely afford, worked double shifts for years to pay it off. And every weekend, he drove up here and fixed it himself, the plumbing, the electrical, the roof, everything." I gestured around the room. "He didn't do it for himself. He did it for us, for you, so that you'd have a place to come back to, a place that would always feel like home. And when you called me and told me you'd sold it," my voice broke. "It wasn't just the house you sold, Brianna. It was your father's legacy. It was every hour he worked, every sacrifice he made, every dream he had for you." "I know," she whispered. "I know. And I'm so sorry." "Sorry isn't enough." She looked up at me, desperate. "Then tell me what I can do. Tell me how to fix this." I pulled out the documents Paul had left me and placed them on the coffee table between us. "This is what you need to understand," I said quietly. Your father was smarter than either of us knew. The beach house deed requires two signatures to sell, his and mine. After his death, only I have the legal authority to authorize a sale, which means the transaction you orchestrated. It's void, illegal, fraudulent. Brianna's face went white. What? You forged my signature, Brianna. You committed fraud, and the buyers are suing you and Kyle for everything you're worth. But I thought the house was in both your names. I thought, you thought you could take advantage of me, I said firmly. You thought I was just a grieving widow who didn't understand legal documents or money. You thought you could manipulate me, and I'd never know the difference. No, Mom, I swear. Don't lie to me. My voice rose for the first time, sharp and commanding. Not here. Not in this house. Your father deserves better than that, and so do I. Brianna buried her face in her hands and sobbed. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. There's more, I said. Your father left me other properties, rental buildings in Portland, a commercial property downtown, investment accounts. All told, I'm worth about $2 million, money I never knew existed because your father wanted you to love us for who we were, not what we had. Brianna's head snapped up, shock written across her face. 2 million? Yes. And the condo you've been living in? I've owned it for 15 years. The car you drive? Paid for with my money? The life you've been living? Funded entirely by the parents you tried to steal from? The truth hung between us, heavy and undeniable. I could press charges, I continued. I could send you and Kyle to prison. I could destroy everything you've built, but I'm not going to do that. Hope flickered in Brianna's eyes. You're not. No, because despite everything, you're still my daughter. And your father would want me to give you a chance to learn, to grow, to become the person he believed you could be. Thank you, she breathed. Thank you so much, Mom. I promise I'm not finished. My voice was steel. You and Kyle have 30 days to vacate my condo. You'll pay back every penny you received from the fraudulent sale. You'll attend financial counseling and therapy, both of you. And you'll get jobs, real jobs, not Kyle's fantasy startup. And you'll learn what it means to work for what you have. Brianna nodded frantically. Yes, yes, we'll do whatever you want. And one more thing. I looked her directly in the eyes. You'll earn back my trust, not through words or apologies, but through actions, through showing me day after day that you understand what you did wrong and that you're committed to being better. It might take months, it might take years, but until I see real change in you, we maintain boundaries, clear, firm boundaries. I understand, she whispered. Do you? I leaned forward. Because, Brianna, this isn't just about the house or the money. This is about respect, about integrity, about understanding that the people who love you aren't resources to be exploited. They're human beings who deserve dignity and honesty. I understand, she said again. And this time, I heard something different in her voice. Something real. After Brianna left, I stayed at the beach house alone. I walked the shoreline as the sun set, letting the waves wash over my bare feet, feeling the cool sand between my toes. My phone rang. Mitchell. How did it go? He asked. Better than expected. Worse than I hoped. I paused, watching the sky turn from orange to pink to deep purple. She cried. She apologized. She seemed genuinely remorseful, but I don't know if it's real change or just fear of consequences. Time will tell. Yes, it will. Geneva, Mitchell said softly. Are you okay? Really okay? I smiled, even though he couldn't see me. You know what? I think I am. For the first time in 2 years, I feel like I'm standing on solid ground, like I know who I am again. Paul would be proud. I hope so. There was a pause, comfortable and warm. Can I drive up there? Mitchell asked. I know you might want to be alone, but I'd like that, I said quickly. I'd like that very much. I'll be there in 3 hours. Mitchell arrived just after dark, carrying a bag of groceries and a bottle of wine. I thought you might be hungry, he said, holding up the bag. And I figured we could both use a drink. I laughed, genuinely laughed, and let him in. We cooked together in Paul's kitchen, moving around each other with surprising ease. Mitchell chopped vegetables while I seasoned the fish. We talked about everything and nothing: books we'd read, places we'd travelled, dreams we'd had as children. It felt natural. Right. After dinner, we sat on the deck with our wine, wrapped in blankets against the cool evening air. Thank you for coming, I said. Thank you for letting me. We sat in comfortable silence, listening to the waves. Can I ask you something? Mitchell said finally. Anything. Do you ever feel guilty about this? About us spending time together? About enjoying each other's company? I considered the question carefully. Sometimes. When I laugh at one of your terrible jokes, or when I catch myself thinking about you at random moments during the day, yes, there's a flash of guilt. Like I'm betraying Paul somehow. I feel the same way about Simone. But then I remember what Paul wrote in his letter, that I'm stronger than I know, that I deserve to move forward. And I think, I turned to look at Mitchell, I think loving Paul and opening myself to the possibility of loving again aren't mutually exclusive. They're not a betrayal. They're proof that what we had was real enough, deep enough, to teach me how to love at all. Mitchell's eyes glistened in the moonlight. That's beautiful. It's true. He reached over and took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. Geneva, I need you to know something. I'm not trying to rush you or push you into anything you're not ready for, but I also need to be honest about how I feel. My heart raced. Okay. I think about you constantly. When I wake up, you're the first thing on my mind. When I go to bed, you're the last. And when we're together... He paused, searching for words. When we're together, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Like maybe Paul and Simone brought us together because they knew we'd need each other. I squeezed his hand. I feel it too. You do? Yes. I turned to face him fully. Mitchell, you've given me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. The belief that life doesn't end with grief. That there's still joy and connection and possibility ahead of me. He lifted my hand to his lips and kissed it gently. Then let's explore that possibility. Together. At whatever pace feels right for you. I leaned in and kissed him. Softly at first, tentative, but then deeper, with a hunger I hadn't felt in years. He pulled me close, his arms strong and warm around me, and for the first time since Paul died, I let myself feel desired, cherished, alive. We didn't rush. We sat there on the deck, kissing and talking and holding each other until the moon rose high above the ocean. And when we finally went inside, when Mitchell looked at me with a question in his eyes, I took his hand and led him to the guest bedroom. Not Paul's room, I said softly. Our room. A new beginning. He nodded, understanding completely. We made love slowly, tenderly, learning each other's bodies with patience and reverence. Mitchell was attentive, gentle, making sure I felt safe and cherished every moment. Afterward, we lay tangled together, his fingers tracing patterns on my skin. Geneva, he whispered into the darkness. Yes, I'm falling in love with you. My breath caught. I'm falling in love with you too. He pulled me closer, and I rested my head on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. For the first time in 2 years, I fell asleep, feeling completely at peace. Now, I need to pause for just a moment because I have a question for you. Geneva just confronted Brianna and Kyle. She's finally standing in her power after months of being treated like she was invisible. But here's what I want to know. Have you ever had to choose between speaking your truth and keeping the peace? Have you ever been in a situation where you knew you had to set boundaries, even though it meant making people uncomfortable? Drop your answer in the comments right now. I'm reading every single one because your stories matter. They inspire me. They remind all of us that we're not alone in these struggles. And listen, if Geneva's strength is resonating with you, if her journey from victim to victor is giving you chills, then do me a favor. Hit that like button. Not just for me, but for every woman who's ever been underestimated. For every person who's had to find their voice after years of being silenced. That simple click tells me you're here for these powerful stories. Now, Mitchell and Geneva are about to take their relationship to a deeper level. Brianna's world is about to come crashing down, and secrets that have been buried for years are about to surface. You don't want to miss what happens next. Stay with me. The best part is still coming. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because Aunt Uju Voice drops life-changing stories like this every single week. Stories that don't just entertain, they transform. All right, let's get back to it. Things are about to get very interesting. The morning sun filtered through the curtains of the guest bedroom, casting golden light across Mitchell's sleeping face. I watched him for a moment, studying the peaceful expression, the way his chest rose and fell with each breath. This man had entered my life during my darkest hour and somehow became my light. I slipped out of bed carefully, not wanting to wake him, and padded to the kitchen to make coffee. The house felt different this morning, less like a shrine to the past and more like a bridge to the future. As the coffee brewed, I stood at the window overlooking the ocean. The waves rolled in with their eternal rhythm, unchanged by human drama or heartbreak. There was something comforting in that constancy. "Good morning." I turned to find Mitchell leaning against the doorway, wearing his shirt from last night. His hair adorably disheveled. "Good morning," I said, smiling. "Coffee? Please." I poured 2 cups, and we sat together on the deck, wrapped in blankets against the cool morning air. "Last night was—" Mitchell started. "Perfect," I finished. "It was perfect." He smiled, relief evident on his face. "I was worried you might regret it this morning, that it might have been too soon." I reached over and took his hand. "Mitchell, I've spent 2 years living in the past. Last night was the first time I allowed myself to live in the present, to feel something real and beautiful without guilt or fear. I don't regret it. Not for a second." He brought my hand to his lips and kissed it. Neither do I. We sat in comfortable silence, sipping our coffee and watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and orange. "What happens now?" Mitchell asked. "With Brianna? With everything?" "Now we wait. We watch. We see if she's truly changed, or if yesterday was just a performance." "And with us?" I turned to look at him, this man who'd helped me find my strength again. "With us, we take it one day at a time. No pressure, No expectations. We just see where this goes. I can live with that, he said, pulling me closer. Before we continue, I want to pause and ask you something, my dear viewers. Have you ever been in a situation where someone you trusted betrayed you? Where you had to decide between revenge and teaching a lesson with love? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories inspire me to keep sharing these powerful narratives. And if you're finding value in this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Aunt Uju Voice for more inspiring tales. Now let's continue. 2 weeks passed. Mitchell and I fell into a comfortable rhythm. Dinners together, long walks on the beach, quiet evenings reading side by side on the couch. It felt natural, like we'd been doing this for years instead of weeks. But in the background, Brianna's situation was deteriorating rapidly. Kyle had left her. She called me on a Tuesday afternoon, her voice thick with tears. "Mum, can we talk?" I was at Mitchell's office, reviewing some property documents, but something in her voice made me step outside. "I'm listening," I said. "Kyle's gone. He left me yesterday, moved in with some woman he met at a networking event, a woman whose father owns a chain of hotels." She laughed bitterly. "Turns out he was never interested in me, just my supposed inheritance." Despite everything, my heart ached for her. "I'm sorry, Brianna." "Are you?" Her voice sharpened. "Or is this what you wanted? For me to lose everything?" "What I wanted," I said carefully, "was for you to understand the weight of your choices, to recognize that people aren't assets to be managed. They're human beings, deserving of respect and honesty." There was a long silence. "I'm living in a studio apartment now," she said finally, her voice small. "Working 2 jobs, waitressing during the day, cleaning offices at night. I can barely make rent. And every night I lie awake thinking about everything I had, everything I threw away." That's called consequence, Brianna. That's what happens when you build your life on lies and manipulation. "I know." Her voice broke. "I know, okay? I messed up. I destroyed everything. And now I'm paying for it. Isn't that enough?" I took a deep breath, thinking about what Paul would say in this moment. It's not about punishment, sweetheart. It's about transformation. Are you working those 2 jobs because you're afraid of the legal consequences? Or are you doing it because you genuinely want to rebuild yourself from the ground up? "I don't know," she whispered. "Maybe both?" "Then keep going. Keep working. Keep learning. And when you've truly figured out who you want to be, not who Kyle wanted you to be, not who you think will impress others, but who you genuinely are, we'll talk again." "How long will that take?" "As long as it takes." Another silence. "Mum, I found something. In one of the boxes from the condo. A letter from Dad. It was addressed to me, dated a few weeks before he died." My heart clenched. What did it say? That he saw what I was becoming. That he loved me anyway, but was disappointed. That he hoped I'd find my way back to the values he and you taught me. She sobbed openly. "He knew, Mum. He knew I was turning into this terrible person. And it broke his heart." Tears streamed down my face. "Your father loved you, Brianna. Even when he was disappointed, even when you hurt him, he never stopped loving you. I wish I could tell him I'm sorry. So do I, baby. So do I." "Can I see you?" she asked. "Not for money, not for help. Just, I need to see you. Please." I thought about it, weighing compassion against boundaries. "Not yet," I said gently. "You're on the right path, but you're not there yet. Keep working. Keep growing. And when the time is right, we'll sit down together. I promise." Okay, she whispered. I love you, Mum. I love you too. That evening, I told Mitchell about the conversation while we cooked dinner together in my house, the house I'd finally moved back into, the house that was starting to feel like home again. How do you feel about it? He asked, stirring the pasta sauce. Conflicted. Part of me wants to rush in and save her, the way I always did when she was a child. But another part knows that would be the worst thing I could do right now. She needs to save herself. That takes incredible strength, Mitchell said. Watching someone you love struggle and not intervening. It's one of the hardest things a parent can do. Did you and Simone have children? He shook his head, a shadow passing over his face. We wanted to, tried for years, but it never happened. And then she got sick, and he stopped, his voice catching. I set down the salad I was preparing and wrapped my arms around him from behind. I'm sorry, I whispered against his back. He turned in my arms and held me close. Sometimes I wonder what kind of father I would have been, if I would have been good enough. You would have been wonderful. You are wonderful. He kissed my forehead. Thank you for saying that. We stood there in the kitchen, holding each other, two people carrying their own griefs and finding comfort in shared understanding. Geneva, Mitchell said softly, I want to tell you something. Okay. When Simone was in the hospital, in her final days, she made me promise something. She said, Mitchell, don't spend the rest of your life alone. Don't let grief make you forget how to live. Promise me you'll find someone who makes you laugh, who challenges you, who reminds you what joy feels like. He pulled back to look at me, his eyes glistening. I promised her. But for 7 years, I couldn't imagine keeping that promise. I went through the motions of living, but I wasn't really alive. Until you. My breath caught. You've reminded me what it feels like to wake up excited about the day ahead, to laugh without feeling guilty, to imagine a future that isn't just empty space. He cupped my face in his hands. I know it's only been a few weeks. I know we're both still healing. But Geneva, I need you to know. You've changed everything for me. I kissed him, pouring everything I felt into that kiss. Gratitude, affection, hope, desire. When we finally pulled apart, both breathless, I whispered, You've changed everything for me, too. We made love right there in the kitchen, urgent and passionate, laughing when we knocked over the salt shaker, gasping each other's names as we found release together. Afterward, we finished cooking dinner, naked, comfortable in our skin and with each other, and ate by candlelight, talking about everything and nothing. This, I thought, is what healing looks like. Not forgetting the past, but making room for the future. 3 months after the initial confrontation, Brianna showed up at my door unannounced. She looked different, thinner, but in a healthy way. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore jeans and a plain t-shirt. No designer labels, no expensive accessories. Mum, she said, I know you said not yet, but I needed to see you. I needed to show you something. I stepped aside to let her in, cautious but curious. She pulled out a folder from her bag and handed it to me. What's this? My progress. I've been keeping track. I wanted you to see. I opened the folder. Inside were pay stubs from her 2 jobs, a certificate from a financial literacy course, a letter from her therapist documenting her sessions, and handwritten journal entries detailing her journey. I read through the journal entries, my eyes filling with tears. Day 30. I hate this. I hate waking up at 5 a.m. to serve coffee to people who don't even look at me. I hate scrubbing toilets. I hate living in this tiny apartment. But Mum was right. This is what consequence feels like. And maybe I deserve it. Day 45. Something weird happened today. A customer yelled at me for getting his order wrong, and instead of crying or getting angry, I just apologized and fixed it. And afterward, I felt proud, like I handled something difficult without falling apart. Is this what growth feels like? Day 60. I've been thinking about Dad a lot, about how he worked double shifts for years to give me a good life. I never appreciated it. I thought money just appeared. I was so stupid, so entitled. I wish I could tell him I finally understand. Day 90. I met a woman at the diner today, a single mum working 3 jobs to support her kids. She told me she hasn't bought herself new clothes in 2 years because every penny goes to her children. She's exhausted, but so full of love. She reminded me of Mom, of the sacrifices she made that I never saw because I was too selfish to look. By the time I finished reading, I was crying openly. Brianna knelt in front of me, taking my hands in hers. Mum, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it yet, but I wanted you to see that I'm trying, really trying, not because I'm afraid of jail or because I want money, but because I finally understand what you and Dad tried to teach me my whole life. That character isn't built in the good times. It's built in moments like this, when you have to choose who you want to be. I pulled her into my arms, holding her as she cried against my shoulder. I'm proud of you, I whispered. So proud. Really? Yes. Real change is hard, Brianna. Most people never do it. But you're doing the work. You're facing yourself honestly. That takes more courage than you know. We sat there on my couch, mother and daughter, crying and healing together. There's something else, Brianna said, pulling back. I want to pay you back. Every penny from the fraudulent sale. It's going to take me years, but I have a plan. $50 from each paycheck. I know it's not much, but keep it, I said. What? Keep the money. Put it in a savings account. Build an emergency fund. Invest in your education. Use it to build a real foundation for your life. But I owe you. You owe yourself a real chance at a good life. A life built on integrity and hard work. That's payment enough. Brianna's face crumpled. I don't deserve you. Maybe not. But you have me anyway. Because that's what mothers do. We love you through the mess, through the mistakes, through everything. She hugged me again, and I felt something shift. Not complete healing, that would take time, but the beginning of real restoration. Mom, she said softly, can I ask you something? Anything. How did you forgive me? After everything I did, how did you find it in yourself to give me another chance? I thought about Paul, about the letter he'd left me, about the lessons he'd taught me through his life and his death. Your father taught me that love isn't about keeping score. It's about showing up, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. He showed up for us every single day, even when we didn't appreciate it. And now I'm showing up for you, because that's what love does. I want to be like that, Brianna whispered. I want to be the kind of person who shows up, who loves without keeping score. Then be that person, starting now. That night, after Brianna left, I called Mitchell. She came to see me, I said. And I think she's really changing. How do you feel about that? Hopeful, scared, proud, all of it. That sounds about right, he said with a smile in his voice. Geneva, can I come over? I have something I want to talk to you about? Of course. He arrived 30 minutes later with a bouquet of wildflowers and a nervous energy I'd never seen in him before. We sat on my back porch, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. What did you want to talk about? I asked. Mitchell took a deep breath. I know we said we'd take things one day at a time. No pressure, no expectations. And I meant that. But Geneva, these past few months with you have been… He paused, searching for words. They've been the happiest I've been in 7 years, maybe longer. My heart raced. Mitchell, let me finish, he said gently. I'm not asking you to marry me or make any big commitments, but I am asking if I can officially be your partner. Not just your lawyer or your friend, but your actual partner. Someone you can count on. Someone who's building a life with you, not just passing through it. I looked at this man who'd helped me find my strength, who'd honored Paul's memory while creating space for something new, who'd loved me with patience and tenderness. Yes, I said. Yes, I want that too. He pulled me into his arms and kissed me, deep and passionate, full of promise. I love you, Geneva Mitchell. I love you too, Mitchell Brennan. We made love under the stars that night, on the porch where Paul and I had spent countless evenings, and it felt right. Not like a betrayal, but like Paul's final gift to me, the courage to love again. 6 months after Brianna's visit, I invited her to Harlow Bay for the weekend. Mitchell was there too. He'd become a fixture in my life, spending most nights at my house, his things slowly migrating into my space until it became our space. Brianna arrived on Saturday morning, and I noticed immediately how much she'd changed. She carried herself differently, more humbly, more confidently at the same time. Brianna? Mitchell said warmly, extending his hand. It's good to see you again. She shook his hand, then surprised us both by hugging him. Thank you for taking care of my mom, for helping her when I… Her voice caught. When I failed her. We all fail sometimes, Mitchell said kindly. What matters is what we do after. The three of us spent the weekend together, and it was healing. We cooked meals, walked the beach, sat around the fire pit telling stories. Brianna asked questions about Mitchell's wife, and he shared memories of Simone with warmth and honesty. She told us about her job, her therapy, her plans for the future. On Sunday evening, as we watched the sunset from the deck, Brianna spoke. Mum, I need to tell you something. I've been accepted into a social work program at the community college. It's going to take me 4 years, working part-time, but I want to do it. I want to help people who are going through what I went through, people who've lost their way and need someone to believe in them. Pride swelled in my chest. Your father would be so proud of you. I hope so. She wiped her eyes. I think about him every day. About the kind of man he was, the values he lived by. I want to honor his memory by becoming someone he'd be proud to call his daughter. You already are, I said, taking her hand. Mitchell excused himself, giving us privacy, and Brianna and I sat together watching the waves. Mom, she said softly, I'm happy you found Mitchell. Really happy. You deserve love and joy and all the good things. Thank you, sweetheart. That means everything to me. Dad would approve, you know. He'd want you to be happy. I know, I said, thinking of Paul's letter, his final gift of permission to move forward. I know he would. We sat in comfortable silence, the past and present existing peacefully together, no longer at war. This was grace, I thought. This was what redemption looked like. 1 year after the phone call that changed everything, Mitchell asked me to marry him. We were at the beach house, our beach house now, in every sense of the word. He'd been staying there with me most weekends, and we'd slowly redecorated some rooms, blending Paul's memory with our new life together. It was early morning, and we were walking along the shoreline, our bare feet leaving prints in the wet sand that the waves immediately erased. "Geneva?" he said, stopping suddenly and taking both my hands in his. I know we've talked about taking things slow. I know we both carry losses that will never fully heal. But I also know that every day I spend with you is a gift. Every laugh, every conversation, every quiet moment. They're proof that life goes on, that love doesn't run out, that we're allowed to be happy again. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and opened it, revealing a simple, elegant ring. "I'm not asking you to forget Paul. I'm not trying to replace him. But I am asking you to build a future with me, to wake up next to me every morning, to grow old together, to face whatever comes next as partners." His voice trembled with emotion. "Geneva Mitchell, will you marry me?" Tears streamed down my face, tears of joy, of gratitude, of overwhelming love for this man who'd helped me find myself again. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, Mitchell. 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring on my finger, and we kissed as the morning sun rose behind us, painting the sky in brilliant shades of gold and pink. When we finally pulled apart, both laughing and crying, I said, "I need to tell Brianna." "Of course. When?" "Now. Can we drive back this morning?" Mitchell smiled. "Whatever you need." Brianna was at her apartment, a slightly bigger place now, since she'd been promoted to shift manager at the diner. She opened the door in sweatpants and an old college t-shirt, her hair in a messy bun. "Mum! Mitchell! What are you doing here?" "Can we come in?" I asked. Of course, of course." She ushered us inside, quickly tidying up textbooks and papers from the community college courses she was taking. "Sorry about the mess. I was studying. Want some coffee?" "That would be lovely," I said. We sat at her small kitchen table while she made coffee with hands that shook slightly. She was nervous, I realized, still worried that every unexpected visit meant bad news. "Brianna, sit down," I said gently. "We have something to tell you." She sat, her face pale. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Mitchell asked me to marry him this morning, and I said yes." For a moment, she just stared at us. Then her face broke into the most genuine smile I'd seen from her in years. "Oh my God, Mom, that's wonderful." She jumped up and hugged me, then hugged Mitchell. "I'm so happy for you both. So, so happy." "You're okay with this?" I asked, searching her face. "Really okay?" "Mom, are you kidding? You deserve this. You deserve all the happiness in the world." She wiped her eyes. "And Mitchell, thank you. Thank you for loving my mom, for taking care of her, for—" Her voice broke. "For being the kind of man Dad would have approved of." Mitchell's eyes glistened. "That means everything, Brianna. Thank you." "When's the wedding?" she asked, excitement bubbling over. "We haven't planned anything yet," I admitted. "We literally just got engaged 2 hours ago." "Can I help plan it? Please? I know I don't deserve to be part of it after everything I did, but—" "Brianna?" I interrupted gently. "You're my daughter. Of course you'll be part of it. In fact," I glanced at Mitchell, who nodded encouragingly. "I'd like you to be my maid of honor." She froze, shock written across her face. "What?" "If you want to, no pressure. But Brianna, you've worked so hard this past year. You've transformed yourself in ways I never imagined possible, and I want you standing beside me when I marry Mitchell. I want you to be part of this new beginning." She burst into tears, covering her face with her hands. "I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you." "Maybe not," I said honestly. "But grace isn't about deserving. It's about love choosing to show up anyway. Your father taught me that. And now, I'm teaching you." She came around the table and hugged me fiercely, sobbing against my shoulder like she used to do as a little girl. "I love you, Mom," she whispered. "I'm going to make you proud. I promise." "You already have, sweetheart. You already have." The wedding planning brought us closer together. Brianna threw herself into helping, meeting me and Mitchell for dress shopping, venue hunting, and menu tasting. She was thoughtful and attentive, always asking what I wanted rather than pushing her own ideas. One afternoon, while we were looking at flowers, she said something that made me understand just how much she'd changed. "Mum, I've been thinking, I know you and Mitchell are paying for the wedding yourselves, but I'd like to contribute something. I've been saving money, just a little from each paycheck, and I have about $800. I want to use it to buy your wedding bouquet and the centerpieces, as my gift to you." I stared at her, moved beyond words. $800 represented months of careful saving from her modest paychecks. "Brianna, you don't have to." "I want to," she said firmly. "Mum, you've given me everything my whole life. Let me give you this. Please." I pulled her into a hug. "Thank you, sweetheart. That means more to me than you know." "There's something else," she said hesitantly. "I've been seeing someone. His name is James. He's a teacher at the elementary school near the diner. He comes in every morning for coffee before work, and we started talking and—" She smiled shyly. "He's really kind, Mom. Patient. He knows about my past, about my mistakes, and he doesn't judge me for them. He says he loves who I'm becoming." "I'd love to meet him," I said warmly. "Really?" "Of course. Bring him to dinner this weekend. Mitchell and I will cook." Her face lit up. "Thank you, Mom. You're going to love him. He reminds me a little of Dad, actually. The way he talks about his students, the way he cares about making a difference." She paused, emotional. "I think Dad would have liked him." "Then I'm sure I will too." That Saturday, Brianna arrived with James, a tall man with kind eyes and an easy smile. He brought flowers for me and shook Mitchell's hand firmly. "Mrs. Mitchell, Mr. Brennan, thank you for having me. Brianna talks about you constantly." "All good things, I hope," Mitchell said with a grin. "The best things," James assured him. Over dinner, I watched Brianna with James, the way she listened when he spoke, the way she laughed at his jokes, the way she looked at him with genuine affection, not calculation. This wasn't the Brianna who'd married Kyle for status and money. This was a woman who'd learned what real love looked like. "So, James," I said, "Brianna tells me you're a teacher." "Fourth grade," he said, his face lighting up. "Best job in the world. The kids are at that perfect age, old enough to have real conversations, but young enough to still see magic in everything." "That's beautiful," I said. "James started a free tutoring program at the school," Brianna added proudly, "for kids whose families can't afford extra help. He stays 3 evenings a week, completely volunteer." James shrugged modestly. "Education should be accessible to everyone. Every kid deserves a chance to succeed." I glanced at Mitchell, who gave me a subtle nod. We were both thinking the same thing. This man was good for Brianna, good for her soul. After dinner, while Mitchell and James were talking about sports on the porch, Brianna helped me with the dishes. He's wonderful, I told her. He is, isn't he? She smiled, a blush coloring her cheeks. Mum, I never understood what you and Dad had. I thought marriage was about finding someone who could give you the life you wanted. But James, he's shown me it's about finding someone who makes you want to be better. Someone who sees your potential even when you can't see it yourself. That's exactly what it is, I said, thinking of Paul, thinking of Mitchell. I'm not going to mess this up, she said firmly. I'm going to be honest with him about everything, my fears, my struggles, my past. No more secrets, no more games. That's all any of us can do, sweetheart. Show up honestly and do the work. She hugged me spontaneously. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for teaching me what real love looks like. Always, baby. Always. The wedding was set for late September, 1 year and 2 months after that devastating phone call. We decided to hold it at the beach house. Intimate, meaningful, surrounded by the people who mattered most. The guest list was small. Brianna and James, a few close friends, Mitchell's brother who flew in from Chicago, and my sister who came from Florida. And in a gesture that moved me to tears, Brianna suggested we place a photo of Paul on a special table with a candle. He should be here too, she said softly. In spirit. The morning of the wedding, I stood in front of the mirror in the beach house bedroom, wearing a simple cream-colored dress. Brianna was helping me with my hair, her hands gentle and careful. You look beautiful, Mom, she said, her eyes glistening. Thank you for being here, I said. For being my maid of honor. For becoming the woman your father always believed you could be. I couldn't have done it without you, she said. Without your strength, your wisdom, your refusal to let me stay lost. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Mum, I know I can never fully make up for what I did. Selling the house, forging your signature, treating you like you were disposable. Those wounds don't just disappear. But I want you to know I think about it every day. And every day, I try to be someone you and Dad would be proud of. I turned to face her, taking her hands in mine. Brianna, I am proud of you. Not because you're perfect, none of us are, but because you faced your mistakes head on, because you did the hard work of changing, because you chose growth over comfort. That takes more courage than you know. She hugged me carefully, mindful of my hair and makeup. I love you, Mum. I love you too, sweetheart. There was a knock at the door, and Mitchell's voice called, Is everyone decent? I have someone here who wants to see the bride. Come in, I said. Mitchell entered, leading his brother Daniel, who I'd met the night before at the rehearsal dinner. Geneva, Mitchell said, his voice thick with emotion. You look absolutely stunning. You're not supposed to see me before the ceremony, I teased. I know. But I wanted to give you something. We both did. He glanced at Brianna. Actually, Brianna found it and thought you should have it today. Brianna pulled out a small box from her pocket and handed it to me. I found this when I was going through some of Dad's things that had been in storage. Open it. With trembling hands, I opened the box. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet I'd never seen before, with a small charm in the shape of a lighthouse, and a note in Paul's handwriting. For Geneva, for the day she's ready to love again. A lighthouse to guide you home, no matter where you go or who you become. You'll always be my greatest love, but I want you to find joy again. Wear this and know I'm cheering for you. Paul tears streamed down my face. He knew. He knew this day would come. He loved you enough to want you to be happy. Mitchell said gently, even if it meant with someone else. Brianna helped me put on the bracelet, and I looked at my reflection. A woman who'd survived loss, betrayal, grief, and had found her way back to joy. Paul's bracelet on one wrist, Mitchell's engagement ring on my finger, Brianna beside me radiating pride and love. This was grace. This was redemption. This was what Paul had wanted for all of us. The ceremony was perfect in its simplicity. Mitchell and I exchanged vows on the beach at sunset, the waves providing a gentle soundtrack. Brianna stood beside me, beaming with joy. James stood with Mitchell as his best man, having bonded with him over the past few months. When Mitchell said, "I do," when he slipped the wedding band on my finger and kissed me with such tenderness and passion, I felt Paul's presence like a warm breeze, not haunting, not sad, but celebratory, proud. During the reception on the deck, Brianna gave a toast that left everyone in tears. "To my mom," she said, raising her glass, "the strongest woman I know. A year ago, I betrayed her in the worst possible way. I thought I could take advantage of her grief, her kindness, her love. But she didn't let me. She taught me that love isn't weakness. It's the most powerful force in the world. She showed me that consequences and compassion can coexist, that you can hold someone accountable and still leave the door open for redemption." She turned to look at me, tears streaming down her face. "Mum, you saved my life. Not by rescuing me from my mistakes, but by letting me face them, by believing I could be better, even when I didn't believe it myself. You gave me the greatest gift anyone can give, the chance to become who I was meant to be." She raised her glass higher. "And to Mitchell, who loves my mom with the kind of respect and devotion my father would have approved of. Thank you for being patient with her, for honoring her past while building a future together, for showing me what healthy love looks like. I'm so grateful you found each other." Everyone clinked glasses, and I saw Mitchell wipe his eyes. I walked over to Brianna and hugged her tightly. "Thank you," I whispered, "for those words, for becoming this person, for giving me the gift of seeing you heal. Thank you for not giving up on me," she whispered back. Later that night, after the guests had left and Brianna and James had driven back to the city, Mitchell and I stood on the deck under a blanket of stars. "Mrs. Brennan," he said, pulling me close, "how does it feel?" "Perfect," I said. "Absolutely perfect." "Any regrets?" I thought about Paul, about the life we'd built together, about the love that had sustained me through 38 years. And then I thought about Mitchell, about the unexpected second chance at happiness, about the future stretching ahead of us. "No regrets," I said firmly. "Just gratitude. For Paul, for you, for Brianna's transformation, for all of it." "I love you," Mitchell said, kissing my forehead. "I love you too." We made love that night in the bedroom we now shared, the room that had once belonged to Paul and me, but had become ours. It was passionate and tender, filled with laughter and whispered promises. And when we lay tangled together afterward, I felt completely at peace. This was what Paul had wanted for me. This was what he'd planned for with his secret accounts, his legal protections, his letter giving me permission to move forward. He'd known I would need this, need to reclaim my power, to teach our daughter the lessons he couldn't, to find love again when I was ready. "Thank you," I said silently to Paul, wherever he was. "Thank you for loving me enough to set me free." 6 months later, Brianna graduated from her first year of the social work program with honours. Mitchell and I sat in the audience, bursting with pride, as she walked across the stage to receive her certificate. Afterward, at the celebratory dinner, She made an announcement. "James and I are engaged," she said, beaming as she held up her hand to show a simple, elegant ring. "Oh, sweetheart!" I jumped up to hug her. "Congratulations!" "He proposed last night," she said, glowing with happiness. "And Mum?" I said yes, but then I told him we need to do things right this time. Premarital counseling, financial planning together, honest conversations about expectations and goals. I want to build a marriage like you and Dad had, like you and Mitchell have, based on respect and partnership, not fantasy. "That's incredibly wise," Mitchell said, shaking James's hand. "Welcome to the family." "There's something else," Brianna said, glancing at James, who nodded encouragingly. "We want to get married at the beach house, if that's okay with you. I know it's asking a lot, considering you once tried to sell it out from under me," I said, with a slight smile. She flinched. "Yes, considering that." I took her hands in mine. "Brianna, that beach house represents our family's history, the good and the bad, the mistakes and the redemptions. I can't think of a more perfect place for you to start your marriage. Of course you can get married there." She threw her arms around me. "Thank you, Mum. Thank you for everything." 1 year later, Brianna and James's wedding was beautiful, simple, heartfelt, filled with joy. They wrote their own vows, and when Brianna promised to choose honesty over comfort, growth over stagnation, and love over fear every single day, I knew she meant every word. I watched my daughter marry a good man, watched her begin a new chapter built on the hard-won lessons of the past, and felt overwhelming gratitude. After the ceremony, while guests mingled during the reception, Brianna pulled me aside. "Mum, I have something for you." She handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $10,000. "Brianna, what is this?" "It's the money from the fraudulent sale. All of it, plus interest." She smiled through tears. "It took me 2 years of saving every extra penny, but I did it. I paid you back. Not because you asked me to, but because it was the right thing to do." I tried to hand it back. "Sweetheart, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," she said firmly. "Mum, this isn't about the money. It's about integrity. It's about finishing what I started. It's about proving to myself that I can keep my word, that I can do the hard thing even when it takes years." I pulled her into a hug. This daughter who'd been lost and found herself again. "I'm so proud of you," I whispered. "Your father would be too." "I hope so," she said. "I think about him every day, about the kind of man he was, the values he lived by. And I try to honor his memory by being someone he'd be proud to call his daughter." You are, baby. You absolutely are. My dear friends, we've reached the end of Geneva's story, but really it's not an ending. It's a beginning of healing, of second chances, of grace extended and lessons learned. I want to ask you something before you go. What did this story teach you? Did it remind you that strength doesn't mean never falling? It means getting back up? That forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting? It means choosing love over bitterness? That consequences and compassion can walk hand in hand? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me about your own journey of forgiveness, of transformation, of finding joy after loss. Your stories matter. They inspire others who are struggling with similar battles. And if this story touched your heart, if it gave you hope or wisdom or strength, please share it. Share it with someone who needs to hear that change is possible, that redemption is real, that grace always finds a way. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Aunt Uju Voice for more powerful, life-changing stories. Every week, we explore the depths of the human experience, the pain, the triumph, the lessons that shape us into who we're meant to become. Before I let you go, I want to leave you with one final thought. Geneva could have destroyed Brianna. She had every legal right, every justified reason. But instead, she chose to teach, to guide, to love through the pain. That's the kind of strength that changes the world. Not the strength of revenge, but the strength of grace. Not the power to destroy, but the power to restore. My prayer for you today is this. May you find that strength in your own life. May you extend grace when you want to hold grudges. May you choose transformation over condemnation. And may you always remember that it's never too late to become who you were meant to be. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this community. Until next time, this is Aunt Uju Voice reminding you that every ending is really just a new beginning. God bless you all. Epilogue. 5 years later, Mitchell and I sat on the deck of the beach house, watching our granddaughter, Brianna and James's daughter, play in the sand below. Her name was Paula, named after Paul. She has his eyes, I said softly, watching the little girl chase seagulls with unbridled joy. She does, Mitchell agreed, his arm around my shoulders. Brianna had grown into an incredible social worker, helping young women who'd lost their way find themselves again. She often said that her own journey, from entitled and selfish to humble and purposeful, gave her unique insight into the transformation process. James had been promoted to principal of his elementary school, where he continued championing underprivileged children and expanding educational opportunities. And Mitchell and I? We'd built a beautiful life together. We travelled, we volunteered, we spent weekends at the beach house creating new memories while honouring the old ones. Do you think Paul would approve? I asked Mitchell. Of all of this? Of us? Mitchell kissed my temple. I think Paul orchestrated all of this. Every document, every legal protection, every piece of advice he gave me before he died. He was setting the stage for you to reclaim your power, to teach Brianna, and yes, to find love again. I like to think so too. We sat in comfortable silence, watching little Paula discover seashells, her laughter carried on the ocean breeze. This was grace. This was redemption. This was what love looked like when it refused to give up. And somewhere, I knew Paul was smiling.